Now we're going to practice with Sig Figs. In this problem, you are to determine the number of Sig Figs in the following measurements. Stop the video, write your answers. When you're done, start the video again and check your answers. These are the answers to the preceding problems. A, start with the first non-zero number, which is the 3. Go to the last number and determine if it is a sig fig. The final digit is a 0. It is not a sig fig because it is not behind a decimal point. The 4 is the last sig fig. Count from the first to the last and you get 4. In B, the 0 in the front never counts. The other 3 digits are all non-zero numbers, so all 3 of them are sig figs. In letter C, the 2 is a sig fig. The 5 is a sig fig because they are non-zero numbers. If the first and last are sig figs, everything in between is. There are 4 sig figs. In D, because of that decimal point at the end, that last 0 is a sig fig. Count from the first non-zero number, which is 1, to the last sig fig, which is the 0, so you get 4 sig figs. In E, none of those zeros in the front count. Only the 8 is a sig fig. There's only 1. Let's try another problem. Again, stop the video, record your answers. When you're done, resume the video and check your answers. These are the answers. The first thing I do is always check for zeros at the end of the problem because they are always the issue. And I check to see if that final 0 is anywhere behind a decimal point. In letter A, there is a final 0. It is not behind a decimal point. It is not a sig fig, so it doesn't count. The other 2 digits are non-zero numbers, so they're automatically sig figs, so there are 2. In letter B, again, it ends in a 0. That final 0 is behind a decimal point, so it is a sig fig. Start with the first non-zero number, which is 2. Count to the last sig fig, which in this case is that 0, and there are 4. In letter C, again, it ends in a 0. That 0 is behind the decimal point. So start with the first non-zero number, which is the 5. Count to that final 0, and you get 4. In letter D, the 1 is a sig fig, the 5 is a sig fig because they are non-zero numbers. Everything in between is a sig fig also, so there are 4. In letter E, there's no decimal point. None of those zeros are sig figs. Only the 1 is a sig fig, so therefore there's only 1 sig fig in this answer. In F, that final 0 is behind a decimal point, so it is a sig fig. Count from the first non-zero number to the last, and you get 5 sig figs. In G, none of those zeros in the front are sig figs. That leaves you 2 non-zero numbers, both of which are sig figs. In letter H, the first sig fig is the 4. The last one is the 2 because they're both non-zero numbers. First count from the first sig fig to the last and everything in between, and you get 4. Letter I, the 7 is a non-zero number. The 1 is a non-zero number. Everything in between counts, so there are 6 sig figs. In letter J, that final 0 is behind a decimal point, therefore it is a sig fig. The first sig fig is the first 6. The last sig fig is that final 0, so 6 sig figs in this example. In this problem, we're going to do something a little bit different. Here, we're going to round these quantities to the number of sig figs that it tells us to. In A, we're going to take that number and round it off to 3 sig figs. So we're going to take the first 3 sig figs, which are the 5, the 4, and the 8. We're going to look at the numbers behind that 8 and see if that 8 needs to be rounded up. Because the number after that 8 is a 7, the 8 needs to be rounded up to a 9. We would have 4, 5, 9. That is my 3 sig figs, but I cannot change the meaning of that number. So where the 7, the 1, the 2, and the 9 are, I'm going to put zeros. Because I am not putting a decimal point, those zeros are not sig figs. That number rounded off to 3 sig figs would be 5490000. Try the next 3. Stop the video. Try the next 3. When you're done, check the next slide. These are the answers. The digits in red are the sig figs that I am going to put into my final answer. Letter A has already been explained. Letter B, those red digits are what I'm going to put. So I'm going to copy the number up to that 2. Now, behind the 2 is a 6. That 2 needs to be rounded up. The final answer is going to be 0.0134793. Notice I am not going to add 2 zeros at the end, because if I do, those zeros will be behind a decimal point and will make them sig figs, which would make me have 8 sig figs instead of 6. So I am not going to add zeros at the end of that number. In letter C, I need to round that number off to 4 sig figs. The 4 needs to be rounded up to a 5 because of the 7 that comes after it. My number is going to be 3195. I can't drop that place value, so I must put a 0 because I cannot go from 31,000 to 3,000. So I have to put that 0 at the end. It is not a sig fig because there is no decimal place. In letter D, look at the last sig fig, which will be 7. The numbers behind it do not round it up, so leave it alone. So the answer is 192.67.